Hi there guys, I wanted just to take a few moments today to offer a Jungian perspective on free speech. Now, the talking point of the day, of course, is that Elon Musk's bid to purchase Twitter has been accepted. So he's going to take the company private, and he's made it very clear that he intends to eliminate the censorship on the platform. And this has raised concerns from his opponents, saying that this is likely to give rise to hate speech. So who's right in this situation? Should we be controlling speech? Should we not? I'm not here to say who is right. However, I would like to offer a perspective from the point of view of Jungian psychology, which I think can help any one of us as individuals get through this particular bit of conflict we might be experiencing in this situation. What did Jung have to say about freedom? Well, he didn't say anything about free speech explicitly from what I can see, at least nothing published. When it comes to freedom more generally, he did say that without freedom, there can be no morality. What he's saying is that our attempts to fix the world, to make it a certain way, and to zone in and identify with certain aspects of it whilst rejecting others, this actually hinders our ability to be moral. Because what this does is this conditions certain patterns in our psyches which play out time and time again as we're not conscious of them. And whilst they may have been appropriate at the time they were conditioned, or perhaps not, but many of these things have been taken on board from a very early age, sometimes as young as 4, 5, or 6. And so as we get older and as we encounter similar situations, it becomes less and less likely that those conditioned patterns are actually appropriate for the needs of the moment. When we reject certain ideas, certain words, in essence, what we're doing here is we are casting these ideas into our shadow, and we are saying, I'm not that, I reject that, I am like this. When we do this, it is inevitable that if we encounter those ideas in the world, we're going to become uncomfortable and suffer as a result. So for someone who is on the journey to individuation and is working to explore their unconscious, integrate their mind, and live more peacefully and joyfully as a result, this person is going to take responsibility for their mind as an absolute basic habit, because they understand that anytime they encounter something in the world that they don't like, the only reason they have a problem with it is because it actually says something about their own mind. So if we encounter ideas we don't like, it's not the idea that is making us angry or sad or whatever, it is the way our mind is relating to it. So as we inexorably move towards a more global society, and as we attempt to govern ourselves at a more global level, which is probably going to happen, then this is a challenge that we need to overcome somehow. Now, there's a lot of talk about, if we can just agree by the right set of values, or a certain set of values, or if we can build the perfect system that will just get it right. Now, this is in some ways the great fallacy of humanity, right? It's like if we can just make things a certain way, then we'll feel secure, then we'll be safe, then we'll survive, and then we'll belong socially. But of course, this can never work. And I touched on just now earlier why it can't work, but it's really because there is the unconscious. There is always something that's unaccounted for. This is why we experience any change at all. It's like a dance between the conscious and the unconscious at all times. And the fact that there are things we can't see means that there's always going to be things that we didn't account for in whatever model we come to. There is no fixed set of values, no fixed system that can work permanently. From a Jungian perspective, we can understand why people might come to different ideas around what we should do in these situations. Jung actually identified 4 different, what he calls judging functions. So these are the ways in which people make decisions. And you've probably heard of these before. It's thinking and feeling, and then it's applied in the external world and our internal world. And so that gives us 4 different ways of making decisions. So in brief, that would be internal subjective logic, external effectiveness and systemizing, like what works in the world. And then there would be personal value system, and then there would be group value system or harmony, and what gets people's needs met. And so we all have a preference for one of those four. And if we're using that at the exclusion of the others, then we're likely to come to our conclusions and be so sure that they are not only right, but true. It's going to feel like it's true to us, and we're going to come to it with probably a lot of conviction around this. And so you can understand how two people using two different judging functions in this way aren't going to see eye to eye. Now, the way through this is not merely, I would say, just to accept, although that is a really important part of it, obviously. But acceptance on its own isn't quite enough. We need to understand. If we can really understand not only that people are different, but why they are different, that there are entirely different sets of mental tools for coming to these decisions. And the way to do that is to actually see it in oneself, to look at one's own mind, to see that, yes, I use logic, but I actually also, there's part of me that does value group cohesion as well. And so if we can get in touch with that, we can actually start to empathize a bit more with other people's ways of making decisions. And the same is true from the other way around. We're never going to fully develop alternate functions in the same way that we use our primary functions, but we can integrate them, we can fold them into consciousness, and having done that, we can absolutely understand the basis for difference, and then we can appreciate the difference, because we need all of these functions. None of them are better or worse than any other. So the point here overall is not that we should or shouldn't restrict speech, but to understand that existence itself is already completely unrestricted. It is free. It's only our own attempts to make it a certain way, to identify with some things whilst casting others into the shadow, that actually causes all of our problems in the first place. So this is not to say that if one was to encounter hate speech, that might not give rise to some negative feelings in you. There's nothing wrong about that. It's to say that by facing up to those feelings and understanding their true origin, one can absolutely gain insight into their own mind and then integrate and individuate as a result of that. So I think Elon Musk here has really set out a call to adventure, and I think it's a call that we as a culture and as a society probably could benefit from taking if we are to address some of the challenges. So this could actually be a fantastic opportunity for us to gain the tools we need to navigate a more globalised society. Hope that's useful, guys. I shall chat to you next time.